Which one of these is any better than Trump? Which one would you pick for the good of our country? I'd like to see Trump not get the nomination because that would make it that much easier to send him to prison where he belongs. If you're trying to make things better for America, easier for Joe Biden in November, who would you have picked? CBS has a new poll showing Donald Trump beating Joe Biden in November by only 2 points. Now, considering how poorly Biden's approval ratings are, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Trump is scary, I'll give you that. But I think we want him on the ballot if you want Joe Biden reelected. Because look at that, Trump has 50% of the vote. The CBS poll shows DeSantis beating Biden in November by 3 points. Haley, she's beating Biden right now by 8 points. And she's been beating him by that margin for months. So we probably want Donald Trump on the ballot in November. But it's giving me an upset stomach. No pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. There's going to be a little pain, and it's going to be scary, but I think we need him on the ballot. I know it's dispiriting to watch Donald Trump have a good night in Iowa. He had a good night. We had a bad day. If you're keeping score, it was a bad day for America. I still think he's the easier of the three to beat because he's already proven he's beatable. He lost the popular vote in 2016. Hillary just had to turn over something like 100,000 votes in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and she would have won those 3 states and been president. And he lost it all in 2020 by 7 million votes. This is kind of important. In a poll of likely voters, it is split down the middle when asked, what do you care more about, a functioning democracy or the United States having a strong economy? And it's split right down the middle. It's incredible. 50-50. 50-50. Now, this is why it's good for Joe Biden. If you look at this, 64% of Democrats think it's more important to have a functioning democracy, but only 35% of Republicans say it's more important to have a functioning democracy because Republicans are voting for fascism. But if you look at the independents, and yes, there are independents, 52% say functioning democracy is more important than having a strong economy by 4 points. Now, 4 points may not seem like a lot. You win elections between those margins. More Americans care about a functioning democracy than they do a strong economy. Okay, so that looks good. If it's a choice between democracy and the economy, it looks like the independents are going to lean towards voting for democracy, and a vote for democracy is a vote for Joe Biden. Why do Americans think Democrats, the party of Roosevelt and Johnson, isn't strong on the economy? Well, look at this. What is going on here when it comes to personal finances? Okay, in elections, this traditionally has been where the rubber meets the road. 49% of likely voters say they will be better off if Trump wins in 2024 financially, and only 21% say they will be better off financially if Joe Biden wins. Okay? What is going on? What is going on? Is this a messaging problem that Joe Biden has? Because all the yardsticks tell us that Bidenomics is a smashing success. Inflation is coming down to around 3%. We have full employment in this country. Unemployment has been holding steady below 4% for nearly 2 years, and that's considered full employment. The recession everyone predicted never materialized. I think the last quarter, our GDP growth saw something like a 5% pop. Not in decades have we seen something like that. And yet, Americans aren't feeling it. Why? Maybe we're using the wrong yardsticks to measure our economy. Half this country can't come up with $500 for an emergency. Now, that changed briefly in 2021 with the child tax credit expansion. But then when it expired, it went back up. Poverty went back up, and we began hearing that half this country can't come up with $500 in cash for an emergency. I'm not blaming Biden. It was the Republicans who let the child tax credit expansion lapse. Whatever yardsticks they're using in Washington to measure our economy, it doesn't seem to be telling us that half this country can't come up with $500 for an emergency. This economy, and we're seeing it in this poll, this economy, this government doesn't work for half this country. Now, in the past, I've been saying it doesn't work for the people who don't vote. I say with likely voters, the government and the economy works for the people who vote. And I used to believe that when, Obama was saying in 2012 that only 40% of eligible voters vote. But things have changed thanks to Donald Trump. Turnout in 2020 was incredible. 66% of eligible voters cast a ballot in 2020. It was a record turnout, biggest turnout. More Americans voted in 2020 than ever before. More Americans are expected to vote in November than they did in 2020. So do the math. If the economy doesn't work for half the country, and more than half the eligible voters, 66% at least, are going to be turning out in November, Democrats have a problem. Democrats have a problem. If right now only 21% of Americans believe they'll be financially better off if Joe Biden wins, and 49% think they'll be financially better off if Trump wins, the Democrats have a problem. Now, the people who think they're going to be better off under Trump are wrong. How do you tell them that? What more do you need to know about our economy when I tell you that half this country can't come up with $500 for an emergency? Now, there are a million excuses that you will be hearing from me for why things are the way they are, because I support Joe Biden and I'm a Democrat. You cannot sell yourself as the party of the middle class the way the Democrats do. You cannot sell yourself as the party of the underdog, the party of unions. You cannot claim you have a record to run on when half this country can't come up with $500 for an emergency. That is the recipe for fascism. Bernie said, you defeat fascism by addressing structural economic inequalities. When there is despair, economic despair, you make things right. Otherwise, republics fall prey to con artists who spew faux populism while secretly aligning themselves with the fascists. Fascism doesn't succeed without faux populism. We saw that throughout Latin America, and of course, in Italy, Germany, and with Trump. Trump is not an original. When a vast swath of the population feels left behind, a con artist can always fill the void with fascism. So, again, I do believe democracy and freedom is on the ballot in November. I don't think you win elections asking people to vote for an abstraction like freedom or democracy. I think you win elections by taking care of the people who can't come up with $500 for an emergency. The Democrats, I believe if we just stay the way we are, I think we can win in November. I think we're going to win in November. Just going slow and steady. But maybe not. The Democrats need to go big with something. They need to take on the ruling class the same way Donald Trump pretends to be taking on the ruling class. If you talk to his voters and his surrogates, they are taking on Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, the ruling class, the deep, dark state. It's all bull, but they're hitting those touch points, and it's registering with half the people who can't come up with $500 for an emergency. I know Biden and the Democrats want to be poetic and talk about freedom and democracy because it is on the ballot. You got to do better than that. Most Americans, they're not worried about democracy and freedom. As James Carville said in 1992, it's the economy, stupid. People don't vote abstractions like freedom or democracy. They vote to pay their rent. If half the country can't come up with $500 for an emergency, that means half this country is desperate. They've already lost their freedom. And democracy, what do they care about democracy? Desperate people make desperate choices. They choose Donald Trump. You cannot run on a negative. You can't say, vote for me because I'm not him. That's how Biden won the first time. So my advice to my party is pick up the game when it comes to big, bold ideas. Tell us what the next 4 years are going to be like. Promise me something like Medicare for all, which you're never going to do. See, I like Joe Biden. I'm voting for him. The problem is not just Biden. It feels like the Democrats look like they're out of ideas. Looks like they're exhausted. And the Republicans, they're destroying the country, but they're filled with piss and vinegar. It feels like the Democrats moved a little to the left under Joe Biden, and now they don't know where they are. Where are we? What do we do? This is unfamiliar territory. Do we stay here? No. You have to make a choice. You move further to the left and win over half the country that can't come up with $500 for an emergency. You move to the left, or you move back to your default position, which is the center, and that makes these elections tighter. It makes for Senates without filibuster-proof majorities, and it's the same grinding nonsense where no big ideas get sent through Washington.
It's time right now for the David Feldman Show.